Chair. Welcome to For the Love of Literacy, Leighton. I am so thrilled that you are here today and excited about what we're going to talk about. You're kind of a unique first timer in that I have not gotten to talk about happiness and happiness research with anybody yet. This is season 3 and you are the first one. So how are you today? And would you please introduce yourself to the audience?
I'm doing great. Had a great day. And so just a little bit about myself. I am a second-time author. Recently, actually, the book is scheduled to be released on February 4th. I'm not sure when this podcast will be available, but it's about a
Shortly,
week.
shortly thereafter. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, cool. So very exciting. It's been a 4-year journey. Um, had a book tour that we went across country. The whole premise of my book is I developed like an equation to measure your happiness, where you basically answer 7 questions, 7 short questions, and then you will get a happiness score on a scale from 0 to 100. So on our road tour, we did live street interviews with people. We asked them the questions, they responded. We talked about their responses and on camera. It was very impactful. It was a really great experience. So that's a little bit about myself.
That that is really cool. So was the process of collecting research and asking people the questions part of what the 4-year process was, or was that the actual writing of what you found?
It was kind of both. So the writing took a very long time just to, first of all, get it all out. I mean, I own a business, I have 4 kids, I have hobbies. It's a pretty hectic life. So what I said I was going to do is I was just going to do 2 hours a week, just write 2 hours a week, an hour on Tuesday and an hour on Saturday. And that's basically what I did. And then over the course of time, I finished. And then it was time to go into the next part of the process with editing and so on. But kind of during that time, people knew what I was working on. I was constantly polishing the equation, getting feedback, asking people questions, and so on. So it was always an interactive process. But at the time that we got to the point of the book tour, which was only a couple months ago in November of 2024, it was fully polished at that time, fully researched, had mathematicians look at it to certify that the math piece of it was good. There is a lot of subjectivity because the questions are answered by the person asking them. So it's going to depend a lot on their honesty and that kind of thing. But yeah, we've gotten a great response everywhere we go, and it's pretty exciting. I'm really excited to see like and the pre-sales are going great too. So
Good.
it's
Oh, that's definitely good. And you said so. This is second book, right?
like
Your happiness equation is your second book.
Yeah,
Yeah,
correct.
cool. Because I mean, like I'm in the process of finding, and I write children's books, but I am in the middle of finding the right publisher, right setup for this second book, and I might even do Kickstarter. I've been looking into that a
Um,
little bit. Um, but let's come back and talk about this because, first of all, I'm so excited about your book coming out. I will definitely be purchasing a copy because I've in the back scenes or whatever you want to say. I've got 3 little kids. I'm a stay-at-home mom, and then I, volunteer and do things in the community. Got my hobbies as well. But I love to write, and so even if it's just writing in my journal each night or dedicating an hour or two on Saturday or Sunday to write, I do it. And I just started writing a self-help for adults about how to find joy, how to find happiness in this life,
wow,
so
nice.
that I could start applying, practice what I preach, essentially. Now, it is nowhere near like publish it ready or whatever. And I have incorporated a lot of research into it, which is why I was fascinated to learn more about your line of research and how you went about it. I did make a questionnaire. It wasn't math or, certain things like that. So I'm excited to hear about how this equation works out. But it's just mostly been that I know that life is life and that we all have been dealt certain things, and how we handle them is kind of how we shape ourselves. And but that there's always some silver lining, there's some kind of joy even in the toughest trials or the hardest heartaches or whatever we go through. So again, it was really to help me, but I am like I'm kind of pushing myself like, no, you should publish this. Anytime you have something like a story to share or a concept that you know can help people, because it's really the perfectionist in me that's like, oh my gosh, I'll never have that manuscript ready. It's 13 chapters. It's blah, blah, blah. I need to do more research. I can always do more research.
Sure,
But
sure.
yeah, you know this, right? You know
Oh
this
yeah.
as an author. But let's talk a little bit about the equation and the research and the message you want to share, because that's why we're
Sure.
here. Okay.
Oh yeah. Yeah, so the idea was I wanted to create a book on happiness and I wanted it to be accessible to as many people as possible. And I felt that you know, just writing a book that didn't have, I wanted something that had like a viral hook almost to it.
Right.
So
Yeah.
the equation is really kind of a Trojan horse. And my thought on it was, if I can create something that people are going to want to do, because like everyone wants to, like, if, hey, get your score on something. If it's not too long to do, and mine isn't very long at all, they're very deep questions, but you can get through it pretty quickly. I felt a lot of people would do it and get their score. And now they have like thought about some really important things in their life. And hopefully, they're going to have people that they know take the quiz also and have conversations between them. And people who may have never thought about happiness are going to start talking about happiness. And there's probably a million angles to get people to interact with content. And that was just my way of taking a stab at it. But yeah, that was the idea. And the equation, I do tell people that again, the equation of Trojan horse. The real meat of what I'm talking about are the variables that go into the equation. So that's really what I'm trying to get people to interact with and take in and process. So as far as the score goes, I tell people, look, please don't get hung up on your score. It's really just a number. The
Right.
more important thing is how these other things show up in your life and being intentional about it. So that's kind of the idea there.
That is so cool. And so with this equation, and I do want you to discuss, if as long as you're comfortable with it, the 7 questions, that go
Yeah, sure.
into it. With and you mentioned the mathematical part of it, which is kind of intriguing. The way you're saying it, like I'm just eager to see it too, because yes, nobody likes the really long questionnaire that goes on, 40 questions or whatever. And then you get your score. Like if you're having even just like a beauty thing, like, oh, I'm going to talk about my hair type so I can find the right products to be using. By the time you have answered 10 questions, if it's a
Yeah.
good questionnaire, you should be done, right? Like that, you should, as long as you answered it honestly and correctly, like you should know where you're at. And so I get this feeling that with your equation and with the questions, that it's kind of that same idea of just like you said, they're deep, but if you answer it honestly and you assign it the number or the equation, you'll get to the right number. Am I getting it kind of correct?
Yeah, largely correct. 7 questions. I can go through them. They're fairly short. They're very deep. I mean,
Okay,
there's levels to how deep you can go. Like on some of the street interviews, they went very deep. Some of them were
that's cool.
superficial. They don't random guy on the street who's asking them questions. But I can
Right.
imagine. I
Like,
mean,
where's this going to show up? Or, yeah, like, are you putting this on YouTube?
oh, and we did, and
That's
Instagram.
cool. Yeah,
But having these and trust, then you can go to like a whole nother level of depth. But
definitely.
um, so the 7 questions are the first one is are your basic human needs being met? It's number one, yes or no question. Second question is do you belong to any groups that are meaningful to you and meet regularly? Second question. Third question is of scale, how would you rate the value that you bring? There's a lot of context around kind of what the book goes into, but just for shorthand in our conversation, we belong to all types of groups. First of all, your family is a group, the people you work with is a group, people have other groups that they belong to. So in answering that question, it's the groups that are we're in groups just because of where we live or things that we're involved in, but they don't really because you have to be in it. But the ones that are important to you, what value do you bring to those groups? So that's kind of what that question is. The fourth question is on an A plus, rate your gratitude. All right.
Say
And
that one more time. Sorry, it cut off. So what about your gratitude? Rate your gratitude.
so on an A plus to F scale,
Okay.
how would you, yeah. And then the fifth one is, I'm sorry, when a meaningful situation does not expect on your emotions lasts short time. And then the sixth question is, do you believe your life has a purpose? And then the seventh and final question is, on an A plus to F scale, would you rate your progress to achieving your purpose in life?
Oh, I
And
can
those,
see how someone goes deep on that for
yeah,
sure. Even on the street. Yeah. Those last two, especially.
sure. And what I tell people also and is that your happiness equation, the thing that I developed, is not really designed to measure your emotions
Mm.
because you can tell that these questions don't ask you like how was your day and how's your week and what's challenging you right now. It's not really designed to capture or measure that. What it's really designed is it's designed to measure the structures in your life that produce tendency and the ability to produce happiness and long-term happiness. And that's the kind of happiness that I'm referring to in the book. And I make it talking about the emotion of happiness. I'm talking about and how I define happiness in the book is a sense of inner peace and satisfaction at the deepest. That's the type of happiness that I'm referring to.
Yes, and that profundity, that level of being truly genuinely happy, and why I actually changed the name of the book I was writing from Seeking Happiness to Seeking Joy is it is an active process, but to kind of get across to the reader, you have all the keys to unlock this happiness and this joy in your life. Here are the ways to tap into that kind of a thing. Um, and I didn't make a quiz or anything in the book, like as you're reading, rate yourself from 0 to 10 on this, that, and the other. But there were a few points when I thought about it because it was something like the chapter might be, oh, like moving your body can help you feel joy. Now, not everybody gets a euphoric high from lifting weights. I sure don't. I know it's good for me. I don't enjoy it, but going running or dancing, it will definitely get me there. And moving my body is the goal and helps me, achieve joy. Then I'm going to be leaning more towards that kind of exercise. So that's like one of the themes, or the hobbies we have, or the way we're living our lives, the people we surround ourselves with, right? I mean, if we're not careful, and we've all heard the truth about how the 5 people that you're most often around, that you surround yourself with, are the people whose values you're really incorporating. So if you have a bunch of pessimism seeping in, that it's very hard to fight that. We all have this natural man, natural woman tendency to see the negative or to be doom and gloom, right? So if you're going to seek that optimism, be that optimist in the group, then you do have to do some work, right? It's not just, I wish it was a natural process, but I don't think we'd enjoy it quite so much if it was just that easy. It's quite a bit of work sometimes.
Yeah, yeah, it's that's actually kind of good in a way because a lot of people go through life thinking that happiness is external, that is imposed on them, and they don't really in or any agency in themselves being happy.
Right.
And go out into the world and do certain things and put in the work. And the result of that is going to be these things that you've built are going to be probably a reliable source of happiness in your
Right.
life. That's encouraging that you don't have to just be on these emotional roller coasters of when things are good, you're happy, when things are bad, you're not. You're actually regularly produce happiness in your life.
Yeah, and that role of agency is key, I think, like you're saying, because one of the themes or focuses that I've done less research on, but that I want to go there is how we use the power of choice to transform our lives, not just transform our day or our week. Like you said, we're looking long term. So, what are the like habits? What are the routines? What are the things that I'm doing that are keeping me from that satisfaction and that joy? Well, I'm making choices. So, if I know for a fact that, well, let's just take my really bad habit of being a night owl. I get a lot done when the house is quiet and the kids are in bed. I'm sure you can relate. I
Sure.
also, try to clean up the kitchen, do all those final things. But then in that last hour or so for myself, I love to read, I love to write. If I'm reading a good book, it's hard to put it down. So even though I'm reading in bed, I still can't fall asleep. But knowing that I also get a little peeved if my kids come in the morning and they wake me up. So I haven't had a chance to get up and do anything
Yeah.
and they're coming in. So because I know that about myself, that I have that tendency to stay up late, but what I wouldn't give for just 10 minutes to meditate, pray, write in my journal, make that cup of perk or whatever, hot cocoa, whatever gets me going in the morning in the winters, because it's just that dreary, like I don't want to get out of bed. I know I have to, but even just that slight choice, right, to inch my bedtime back so that I can get up. And it doesn't have to be monumental. I know moms that get up 2 hours before their kids. I'm like,
Yeah.
go you. That's great. If I just had 10 minutes of somewhat, relative silence to do a couple things, to basically kickstart the day, that is a habit. That is a choice I'm making that I know I can do better on. That would actually come full circle to making me a happier person. It's just really easy sometimes. I've made a rule too about, okay, putting the phone away, no devices after 10 o'clock. I just can't. Because if I
Oh,
go down a rabbit hole or, if I'm scrolling through feeds or reading a news story, it is crazy how fast the time goes,
yeah.
especially
Yeah.
when I'm in bed and the kids are in bed and I don't have to be doing anything. But if I set myself up for success and for, again, that ultimate, I want to be happy. A year from now, I want to feel like a productive person who gets out of bed on her own and does these things. Then it starts with choice. It starts with making a different choice now. And that will, yield to really awesome results in the future. I still need to see that happen more than like once every couple of weeks. That's where I'm at, is like I know that's my goal, right? And to be less impulsive. These are New Year's resolutions, but how do you measure it, and that kind of thing too. So I agree with that. I feel like too with your book, do you feel like it's a guide, not necessarily a recipe, but like a guide to get people moving in that direction? Like, I want to be happy, but how do I achieve it? Does it kind of guide you that way?
It does. It does. So the idea is one of the good things about it being equation and asking these questions is that when most people go through it, they usually will have one or two questions that ping them in terms of, man, I thought I would answer a lot higher than that, but as I sit and think about it, I'm not doing it as well as I could in that area, and that is something that is a great place to start. So if someone is like, I want to be happier in 2025, well, and the great thing about this stuff is it is timeless, really. So
Right.
whenever you come across
Nobody,
this podcast or the book, none of this stuff has an expiration date. But if you decide you want to become happier and you don't know where to start, going through the equation is a great place to start. Going through the quiz, and if something pings you, then start with that. I provide a lot of information in my book, but there's a lot of resources out there. I don't. There's probably not enough. Not
right.
all the material has been covered. I read a book. I just finished a book today by Dr. John Deloney, about how to live a non-anxious life. And I never read his book. I had no idea what was in there. And some of the things I talk about, he talks about, but he also talks about things that I don't talk about at all. And I was like, wow,
Right,
that's really powerful. And I'm sure I talk about things that he never talked about,
for sure.
that he didn't talk about. So, and when you put your, hat in the arena in this topic, in this genre, I'm sure you're going to bring things to the table that are going to either resonate with people differently than maybe the stuff that's already out there, or you're going to have a new angle, or just maybe potentially new information. So I think it's great. I think we can all help and learn each other and get access to communities that maybe I can't get access to, or and vice versa. So
Yeah, that's a really good point. I read, listened to on Audible last year, The Anxious Generation,
mm.
because I've also noticed. So, see, here's my little makeshift copy. Seeking, this was before it became Seeking. But yeah, here's some research on what I'm going through and what I'm thinking. And there is a section on a chapter of just mental health and anxiety because the last chapter was going to be your happily ever after. And then I'm like, that's so cliche. And so then after I had put my chapters pursue a passion, there's anxiety and time management. Like that is a chapter.
Yeah.
Because what I know about myself, right? What I know about myself is that I'm a poor manager of time. It is actually a really big uh, pitfall for me. It's a big weakness. And the biggest problem is, and not enough people talk about this unless it's in reference to like ADHD, which I've wondered as an adult if I've developed it. I didn't have it as a kid, but I have read that many women, especially after having kids and trying to run a house, like they just kind of develop it because it is very hard for me to finish any task to completion. I love lists. So I have started like making myself go down the list to check things off because I'm like, this is ridiculous. It has taken 3 hours to clean the kitchen and to do a load of laundry and to potty train my little one. And that should have happened in 15 minutes or whatever. And so I look at this and I'm like, where am I at? Because so anyway, that's one thing I've noticed about myself, but I'm so like, I'm not the person that tries to be early to things like meetings or movies or anything else because I want to get everything in that I can and I cram things to the last minute, whether it's, getting in one more load of laundry or reading one more page in a book, because I do set time aside to do that and then go pick up my daughter from school. Well, then I found a way to kind of adapt that. Oh, I'd rather not be the last person picking her up. I'll sit in line and read the book in the car. Then I'm not late. But it sounds so crazy, but I actually did have to like just get real with myself and say, Kate, you're always late or running out the door. Like, what is the deal? Why? And it's like I think my time is so important that I can't I can't be, there's no way I can be earlier. I can make that sacrifice to do that thing. And so then, like I said, I found small compromises. Okay, well, I want to finish reading, got my toddler in the back seat, just sitting in a line, read my book. I'd way rather read a book than be scrolling on my phone. Because that to me, if it's not intentional, becomes a waste of time. So I almost always have at least a book in the front seat because you never know. You're waiting at practice to pick up your kid or going to pick them up from school or whatever, right? Um, but it's just so interesting because it's like, again, coming back to choices. I am making myself unhappy, sometimes embarrassed if I walk in a little late because I just couldn't put that thing down or I couldn't finish. I don't even remember what it was today. My husband came up and I was like slamming pots around. I was unloading the dishes, but I was slamming pots around and throwing some food together for the kids for lunch. And I was, taking the recycling out. And it was like all this storm. And he's like, "Hey, what do you need help with? This is like, it looks chaotic, you know? Can you say hi, Mr. Leighton?"
Hello.
This is my son, Jackson.
Hey, Jackson, what's up?
Kind of. Okay, go eat some more food. Okay, see ya.
Yeah, it's I hear you for sure. I think the book that I read that I finished today covered a lot of that stuff. Or some of that stuff, I would say, I didn't really get into that in my
Okay.
book because there's so many angles to happiness,
Right.
and yeah, it's really impossible to cover all of them. But I think you're 100% right, and I think Dr. John Deloney's book, he definitely talked about that. He talked about looking at your life um, in reality, not how you wish things are or how you want things to be. So if it's like if there's something that's showing up in your life that is not the way that you want it to be, don't romanticize it. Like address it head on. And if it's either setting up some system that works for you or just being intentional about how you're going to address it. Now, I think intentionality, some of the common themes between that book and mine is one, he's big on intentionality, and I'm also very big on intentionality. Two, he's also really big on awareness, and I am also big on awareness because awareness is huge. And um, it's funny because as I was like a younger adult, I'm like 46 now, but as I was a younger adult, I would hear these people talking about, oh, we're trying to raise awareness for a cause. And I'm like, raise awareness. Like, where is the power in that? You need to either raise money, you need to get people together, you need to get people to vote, you need to like do something concrete. And as I've gotten older, I've realized that you can't do any of that concrete stuff unless people are aware of there being a need to do that.
Hmm.
And the same thing is true in communities and society as it is in your own life. If there's something that you want to change or you want to do better in, it's like the first thing you need to do is identify that that is an area that you want to change or do better in. And without that awareness, those things are just going to kind of continue in the way that they have been going forever. So yeah, there are some common threads between the different information that's out there, and those are two with one I just intersected with.
And that's good because I feel like, at least even with children's books, one of the things that was required of me was to find other books similar to the concept or the intention that I was setting with my book. Not that they were, not copycatting, but just what maybe how the books would support each other, even. And that's kind of what you're saying here. And that really is key. And if and when I get around to publishing this, I hope that I've found a lot of different things that can resonate with people, because I feel like it's taken such a long time. I'm in my 30s, so I'm not super old, but at the same time, there's so much of life still to live, and it's so much more exciting if you feel like you've found a way to bring joy and happiness, to invite that in instead of pushing it to the side and maybe making it less of a priority. Because then you think about, okay, mortality, this is something that I actually like need to put into practice. I don't have 5 to 10 years to figure it out or be perfect, but I am just going to kind of chip away at it, right? To get to this good existence. I feel like even just looking at you, you look like a happy man. You have a sparkle in your eye, you have a good smile, you've done this research, you seem to just have an aura kind of finding that, or on that path, at least, that would invite other people to open up to you on the street or to participate in your research. So that's really important too, I think, is that as we try to embody the messages that we think are so important, that we're actually living, the principles. So as you find them and
Yeah. So, yeah, full disclosure, I know you didn't mean this, but I'm 100% human. I make and have made all the mistakes there are to make. Also, my score is not 100. I typically score in like the mid to low 80s in my personal score. And I know, having written the book, and especially being on this like promotional tour that I'm on right now, I'm constantly talking about it and having conversations like this, it's a constant reminder to me to there's one question that and now I'm even challenging the way that I think about this, because I have been saying there's one question that I always struggle with, and I think it's the way I'm wired. And I'm trying to undo that thing that I'm telling myself. And it is when a meaningful situation doesn't go as expected, negative impact on your emotions last short time, moderate time, long time. typically I would say I have, and being honest right now, the answer for me is moderate. But now what I'm doing is, and I have many opportunities to do this because life is life, and these things always are happening. What I'm trying to do right now is identify as quickly as I can that this is something that I'm holding on to that I need to let go. Not that I let it go, but just having the awareness that I'm doing this again. Leighton, you're doing this thing that you're trying to improve upon. And that kind
Mhm.
of brings the whole awareness thing into practice. And because it's on the top of my mind, a lot of the other stuff in the equation I do well. Like my gratitude is fairly high. I belong to a lot of meaningful groups. I add value to these groups. A lot of the other stuff I do pretty well on, but that one holds my score down, rightfully so. I need to get better at that. I'm working on it. But having it all on the forefront of my mind, I feel like I'm making progress. So
Mhm.
it's like I'm I'm getting out of my project. I'm getting value out of my project, which is I definitely hope it's going to be valuable to other people, and that of course the goal. But I myself am getting value out of it, so that's important too.
I think it's really powerful. And like you said, like no one has reached perfection yet. I know that. But I feel like that key point that you just made about awareness, that's something that I lack. That's something, for example, meditation doesn't come naturally to me. I do love yoga, but meditation, I'm just like, I don't have time. Like that's literally my response half the time. But now that I've kind of built it into my nighttime routine, or again, if I give myself those 5 minutes before everybody comes running in, clamoring for breakfast, that is where, or even just there have been times where my car is like my just quiet place. Sure, I love to listen to an audiobook or a podcast or whatever, or the music the kids have picked, but there is a really big role that silence plays too, and being able to straighten out your thoughts and your intentions and your goals. So I think that's really important. I think you've touched on a lot of really important things, but that even just that awareness piece, I think, is what many of us, humanity, lack. And so, yeah, I'm excited to kind of go back through these questions and to get a copy of your book and just start kind of really analyzing from your viewpoint where, yeah, this equation and where am I at and what can I work on? Of course, there's going to be more than one thing to work on, but what can I take action on right now and be successful with so that those little wins help me want to keep going, right?
Exactly, and
So,
that's what I recommend to people is, you know, some people are in situations that are very difficult. Some people take the quiz and they get a zero because they're going through it in the hardest of ways. And it can be overwhelming. Now, most people are not in that situation. Most people, it's like one or two things that they can improve on. But regardless, if you have uh, two things or if you have seven things, the way to approach it is to pick one that you feel you can make progress on, and you work on that one, and you focus on it, and you try and get whatever resources, information you can to improve on that. And then once you know that you're in a better place with that and you're at the place you want to be with that, then go on to the next one. Because if you try and, first of all, if you get overwhelmed with a bad response or a bad score, you can be paralyzed into doing nothing, and that's not the goal. We want to make progress. So if you have more than two, you're not sure where to start, just pick the one that you think you can make some progress on and start with that, and get the best you can out of it, and then go to the next one. And those little wins, like you said, those that little incremental progress, I mean, it pays so much dividends. And don't be embarrassed, like for your listeners or whoever comes across this. It's like your happiness is important. You should be intentional about it. I say that in my book many, many times. Don't feel like this is a selfish pursuit. It's not. You being a happier person is going to positively impact everybody who's around you.
yeah,
So it's a moral thing to do. It's a valuable thing to do.
that's a really good point. I mean, these are all really great tips too. And I feel like everyone will be blessed who tunes in, looks you up, and reads the book and just tries to yeah, like don't, it's baby steps really, in a lot of ways. And that's okay. And that's, like you said, it's not selfish to want to be happier, because then that just makes you a more pleasant person to be around and a contributing member of society or several groups, as you mentioned in one of the questions. So yeah, there's a lot of good to be had from that and that self introspection. And I really appreciate the things you've shared today. I'm really looking forward to your book.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. And just so your listeners know, is that you can go on my website for free right now, no credit card, no email address even, and answer the 7 questions and
Okay.
get your score. So I
Tell us your website.
um say again, Katie.
Oh, will you tell us your website so
Sure.
they
The
can go
website,
check it out?
sure, is yourhappinesseq.com.
Perfect.
So they
I'll
can
go
check it out.
myself in just a minute, but I'm sure everyone will want to check that out.
Yeah, please
Thank
do.
you. You're
They can
doing a good
also
work.
pre-order the book there or order it if we're past the February 4th date when they see it. And that's a great place to get that information.
Okay, good deal. Thank you so much for your time today. It was a pleasure.
It's my pleasure was mine. Thank you.
Yeah, take care. Good luck on the rest of the tour.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.
I know.